give you the...
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Peter Møller. I'm the Danish adoptee from South Korea. Nice meeting you all, and you too. I am the co-founder of the Danish Korean Rights Group. We started back in March 2022. 3 people. In April, we were 12 members, and today we are more than 520 members of Danish adoptees. It's only from Denmark. I'm actually not an activist. I think it's fantastic that people do activism and so on, but I've actually just been an ordinary Danish adoptee, going to work and going home to work, eating and drinking some beer sometimes and so on. So through the last 10 years, a lot of my friends who are adoptees from South Korea too, we often talk about adoption, and we talk about, we've been talking about people finding their biological family. And we've often wondered, if you are an orphan, that means that you don't have any parents. How come that these biological parents suddenly pop up everywhere? And we also talked about what's in our adoption documents. And usually we said to each other, I was found in the street. I was also found in the street and handed over to the police. And we saw many of the adoption documents that they almost look the same. Almost the same story. So imagine that we were all found in the street and handed over to the police. And you do a little bit of math, then the streets of Seoul must have been flooded with baskets filled with children. So we were wondering a little bit about this. So we started out, I think in May, to other adoptees to make a survey among Danish adoptees and to tell their background story. We call it testimonies. So we received a lot of testimonies, and then we can see the picture again, almost the same stories. And then we said to each other, I'm a lawyer, and some of my other friends are lawyers. So we actually said, okay, let's dig into this. And then we looked at, we saw, I think we had around 25 cases, and said, this cannot be true. So in the beginning, we were actually working to make a lawsuit against Holt, adoption company, and KSS, another adoption company that also sent children to Denmark. So, but also there was one case, I don't know if anyone knows the case about Adam Krebster, an American adoptee. And we saw that at that time, the government and Holt, they said, oh yeah, sure, maybe mistakes have been made, but because of the statutes of limitation, the maximum years are 10 years. So if we came up with cases from the 1970s, we knew exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be rejected. So we actually found the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Korea. They look into cases before 1993. And for some of you who are not Korean, I know about Korean history. South Korea was a dictator until 1993. So this commission looks into what the dictatorship did before 1993. And we found out that adoption is very closely linked to, they call it the authoritarian period, but it is the dictator period in South Korea. We also talked a lot about what should the case be about. And again, for 10, 20 years, we've been talking about background information as a part of your identity, to know who you truly are. And again, we were a lot of law nerds. We could quickly find that it's a human right, actually. The Child Convention, Article 7 and 8, protects the child, also now adults, that we have the right to know our background, cultural background, origin, biological origin, and so on. So that's when the case started. So we started collecting cases from adoptees, saying that we're going to make a complaint to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and ask them to look into adoptions from South Korea. And we started that this project in July, writing a lot of stuff, reading a lot of cases, and I made a quick rundown. The 23rd of August, we filed the first 51 cases from adoptees from Denmark, and we delivered one main application. The main application is from the organization DKRG, and from the 51 cases are from our members. The main application was a little bit important because adoption, also when you address adoption, it's seen as one thing. Adoption actually consists of many processes and many potential violations. Until now, we have identified, when it comes to adoption from South Korea, 56 different kinds of violations. So when you talk about adoption, there's adoption itself is not a violation of human rights, but a lot of the processes that adoption consists of are definitely what we have identified, definitely human rights violations. When I came home to Denmark, I actually had a transit landing in Qatar to go home to Denmark. I had like 300 emails. On the 23rd of August, we filed the case, and when I came into it, was a room pretty much like this. I thought it was like going to the citizen center and deliver some cases and some paperwork, but it was filled with journalists, the room, from international media also. So within 2 hours, the story about adoptees filing a case against the Korean government, state at that time, and the Korean adoption companies, Holt and KSS, it was out in 2 hours. The 13th of September, we decided to open cases for all adoptees from Holt and KSS from the rest of the world. So we delivered another 231 cases from adoptees from Denmark, US, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. And last week, we visited the commission again and delivered another 24 cases, but we also delivered an additional document to our main application, because now we have read all the cases that came in from adoptees from all over the world, and we could see a problem. So I'm going to tell you now what we can prove. We have the role of the Korean state. We can prove that adoption was initiated by the Korean state itself. During Syngman Rhee, the former dictator / president of South Korea, he had a policy called one state, one ethnic people. That means one state, one people policy. This was about deporting mixed blood children to preserve the homogeneous people of South Korea. That was the whole idea. After the Korean War, a lot of American soldiers, they have made children with Korean women, and they were mixed blood. And this was to deport, to keep Korea one people. They made a deportation program. The Korean state at that time hired Holt to be the operator on the mixed blood children solution. And that was because the Korean government, they set down a governmental body called CPS, what is it? I can't remember. CPS. Later it becomes the adoption agency SWS. but they made this governmental body to take care of this deportation. But they were not successful in deporting children. The government thought that they should be sent to the United States because they were half American. So, but they didn't have any contacts in the US. So they hired Holt, the adoption company, and they said, sure, we can do this for you. And there was made this appointment that they took care of deportation. And the Korean government, they made proxy adoption system. So this was, they swapped, they made a deal. We have seen also the Korean state kept numbers of the mixed blood children. We have seen lists, handwritten lists from made by the government. It says Negro, white, others. And then from 1955 and until early 1970s, they have lists of all the children that they collected and deported. The Korean state not only had oversight in legal perspective, they went further and they actually made detailed instructions to the adoption companies how to do this. I'm going to show you some of these later. And also it became political, especially in Norway and Denmark in the 1970s. There was a stop of adoption from South Korea, because they wanted to force Denmark and Norway to sign Security Council documents about North Korea. So it was also used as a weapon in international politics. Here you can see some of what talked about before, the detailed instructions to the adoption companies. This is actually a flow chart made by the Korean government showing how to make international adoption. So number 4 here is the legal guardianship. And there are 12 steps in this. So this was a flow chart how to actually make Korean adoptions. So maybe some of the Korean adoptees, remember we've talked a lot about timelines. So this is actually the timeline. Legal guardianship is number 4. The hujak, we're going to talk about that later on, is actually not among the 12. It's number 13. Release for adoption is after 12. So this is we have around 1,000 pages of these collected from the Korean National Archive. We have a description on minimum prices for a kid, a Korean child. So the government says to the adoption companies, this is the minimum amount of money you have to charge for a child. You can go above, but you can't go under. We also have like business reviews, meetings with quarterly meetings with the 4 adoption companies and the Korean state, where they say like business plan saying you are doing shit on this point, you have to do this better, and the goal is earn more money. We know also that one Korean, at that time, we're back in the 1970s, one Korean, hardworking Korean, contributed with $4,500 to the state through taxes and so on. One unproductive infant sent abroad for adoption was $5,000. So it's actually more money in sending children out than actually to do a hard day's work in Korea. Everything about this one state, one ethnic people policy, we actually say to the Commission, this is ethnic cleansing, to identify a group on their race, their ethnic background, also identify a group of people because they're handicapped, that is a crime against humanity. So we have told this to the Korean government that we consider this a crime against humanity. We are also going to tell it to the UN rapporteur to South Korea that this is going on, and we have this in writing. The funny thing, the biggest source to this information is actually the book, 50 years anniversary book from Holt, made in, I think, 2005. So they don't consider this any problem. So in 2005, they make themselves a 50 years anniversary book where they tell all about this. Also, the CPS now, the adoption agency SWS, they have a 50 years anniversary book also, and they tell gladly about this. So first, they take the mixed children, then they take the handicapped, and then they take the children of unwed mothers. Even today, being an unwed mother and having a child is seen as shameful. And back in the 1970s and 80s, it was really shameful. So the political, during the 80s, 1980s, they talk about, it's called social purification. And if you taste a little bit of that word, then you could guess what it's all about. So to make a homogeneous Korea, that is the whole problem, the whole project here. Holt knew about this project. They write about it. Holt is a fundamentalist Christian organization, so they use another kind of description. So they say, I think they write, to save the children that would have a hard time in this homogeneous country, it was better for the mixed children to be sent out. So everything, the whole narrative about adoptees from South Korea, that is about poor children. So we actually save the children to send them out. The mixed children, and also the mixed children, also the Korean War. After the war, there were so many hungry children without parents. Actually, the mixed blood children, they were actually, until 1970s, majority. Between 100% and 90% of the children sent out, they were mixed children. And there were only 1% of all the war children. So the whole narrative, actually, we're going to rewrite the narrative about children coming from South Korea. The role of the adoption companies. Again, Holt took part in ethnic cleansing of mixed blood children, and they knew about it. From the very beginning, they knew about it. This Harry Holt story that he took in, I can't remember, 8 or 12 children, that was actually a part of this. Both Holt and KSS, this is also something we know. This is not some theory. We have also had delivered proof that both Holt and KSS have double archives. That means one archive with the official adoption background documents that all adoptees from South Korea have, and then they have the real archive. I'm going to also show you later on. Both Holt and KSS use standard forms in adoption process with false background information on adoptees, which made adoptees orphans on paper. I'm going to show you this in writing also. Holt acted as legal guardians without having legal guardianship on behalf of the adoptee after the adoptees became legal adults themselves. I'm going to show that also. Actually, they change our documents way after that we have actually become legal adults ourselves. The last change in my documents, I'm going to show you my documents, were made in 1995. At that time, I was 25 years old. Both Holt and KSS lack relinquishment documents from original parents or lack relinquishment documents concerning abandoned children. So people being told that they were abandoned, there should be reports about that. That was one of the 12 points here. And if they were given away by the parents, there should be relinquishment documents. In none of our cases, we can find any relinquishment documents. And that is also illegal adoption. KSS and Holt refuses full insight into adoption documents and background information. So that is one of the big problems. You have the past and you have the present. So when we as adoptees go and ask for our background information today, and we are refused or given false information, that itself is a violation of Article 7 and 8 in present time. Holt and KSS consider our adoption companies consider our information, our private, intimate information, as their private property. You can own a horse, a bicycle, and a car, but they also own our private information. And we're going to challenge this question, because the private information belongs to each of us, not to incorporated companies. Holt can be held accountable for cases of abduction of children. We have documentation actually here from Norway. We have, I think, a handful of cases from Norway consisting of that they are abducted children, illegal adoptions. I read in a Norwegian, I think it was NRK, that the adoption agency says that there are no illegal adoption from South Korea. That's a lie. And I also read, and that concerns me, that they are not going to look into individual cases. How the hell are they going to find out anything if they don't do that? And again, I can see we have people from the DKRG. We will gladly give you the evidence needed for that. Holt and KSS can be held accountable for trafficking or commodification of children. Holt and KSS can be held accountable for numerous cases of document fraud. Actually, all cases from our organization, all 306 cases, that's document fraud. I haven't seen one single true document. Actually, when I started this, expected maybe it would be hard to prove that there were falsification of documents, because there should be some real adoptions. I haven't seen anyone in any cases. Sorry to say. Holt and KSS keep double archives and giving false information to adoptees on the principle of reoccurrence. That is, they say this statute of limitation. If I go to my computer scanner and makes a copy of a 1,000 kroner bill, and I wait 40 years, and I come and say I'm going to buy something use the 1,000 kroner bill. It's not illegal to make a copy of a 1,000 kroner bill, but it's illegal to mislead someone to believe that this is a 1,000 kroner bill. And that is exactly what they're doing with our adoption documents when we ask for information today. The false documents they made 40 years ago, they use it in present day to mislead us and to lie to us. And yeah, and we're going to make them pay for that also. The role of the adoption companies and Holt, things we don't know yet. The other things we are 100% sure of this. This is the things that we are looking into at the moment. Dead children. Mr. Boo is the former president of Holt in Korea. He mentioned I had a 2.5 hour meeting with him, and Korean television channel KBS and Danish national television, they were there too, so mic'd up and with cameras. I have a 90 pages transcription of this meeting, and we've delivered that to the commission too. But he mentions that 8 children actually, the thing with the 8 children was because in my adoption file, I found a document about my foster mother. So there was information about my foster mother, and there was sort of around 20 children on the list. I was one of them. It said name, went to US, went to Belgium, went to Denmark, and then I saw some of the places expired. And I think milk can expire, but how can a child expire? Hunyang from our group, DKRG group, this word expired. She couldn't forget about it. So she asked a journalist who was going to have an interview with Mr. Boo related to the adoption case, what expired, what the meaning of the expired was. Expired means dead. So an expired child is a dead child. So Mr. Boo told that 8 children a day died in average from Holt alone. And he was the president from 1972 until 1979. So for 6-7 years, 8 children a day. We're talking thousands of children. What he told was that he was actually, as president, sometimes they had it called a bongo car. It's a small van. So they went around to the branches of Holt and took all the dead children, put them in the wagon, drove out to Ilsen and buried the children. Ilsen is Holt's, they have a property, a mountain actually, outside Seoul. So they took the children and buried them at Ilsen. And I talked to Mr. Boo and talked about the dead children, asked him politely if can we visit the graves. No, because there were no graves made. They've just put into ground. And now they have built like 20-story buildings on where they have buried the children. So it's hard to get into the graves. Child labor. We have heard about cases about children at the orphanages, especially a case from a US adoptee. She tells that she remembers the days that she was placed at the adoption, the orphanage. And when she was 8 years old, the older children, they got a small job at the orphanage. Her job, as from the age of 8 to the age of 14 years old, was every morning to collect dead children. So she went around children that died during the night from cold. She collected the children, put them in boxes, and put the children in the coal room because coal absorbs the smell of dead bodies. Because every 14 days, they called them this guy. She had a word for it. It was like the dead man. He came and burned all the children in their own crematory. And yeah, and she also described how some of the children that were very cold, that she put them to, then she helped them and put them in warm water to make the body temperature. Yeah, so these are the descriptions that yeah. Sexual abuse. We have a lot of cases about sexual abuse, both at institutions and also adopted directly to pedophiles. They also related to abductions. I have a case from the United States, a guy writing to me saying that he remembers he was at the market with his Korean mother, at a biological mother, to the market, and the guy came and grabbed him and took him to a flat. And one day after, he was at Holt, and 3 days later, he was in the United States with a single male parent. At that time, only married couples could adopt. So a single male man. And on the second evening, he writes me, the bad father came in and sexually molested him. That went on for 6 years until he was strong enough to fight him back. We have seen from cases from the United States in 2004 that the president of Holt at that time, he had 4 cases against him for accusation for being pedophile. It went to court in the United States. So we actually asked the Korean state to investigate, was there a pedophile cell inside Holt that allowed children, small children, to be sent out to pedophiles? Because you could maybe imagine that the president himself, being a pedophile, would give some tolerance to this thing. We're looking into the money trail inside into non-profit business of Holt and KSS. They are non-profit. Also, the adoption agencies, Denmark and Norway, they're non-profit. They're not allowed to earn money on this on adoption, because then considered trafficking or selling children. But Holt alone earns around between 58 million and 100 million a year. And that's Holt alone. Yeah. So how can you be non-profit? That's just a question we ask ourselves. How can you be non-profit and then earn tons of money? So we have asked the Danish adoption agency to give us, and you can actually do the same. Ask your adoption company, local national adoption agency, to provide you insight into donations, because donations, that's the key word. There's the adoption fee that you pay. That is the non-profit part. And then they give voluntary donations. So if I make an agreement, I can buy you a bicycle for 1,000 kroner, and you said, yes, we have a deal, if I pay you rent for the upcoming year. So I have bought your bicycle for that 1,000 kroner, but I also made an agreement to pay your rent. So what is what? And we're looking into this, because this is one of the keys behind this thing here. You have the deportation of Korean children for money. Here's a falsification of adoption documents. I promised you some documentation. Here is a letter written to an adoptee, and they apologize for the wrong information, background information. It was made up just for adoption procedure and does not show any information, blah, blah, blah. It was made up for adoption procedure. We apologize, and then the real story comes. Here, falsification of documents again, very important. As we know, at the time we used standard forms for adoption process, so the official paperwork was done as the child was an orphan without information on birth parents.
So who writes this?
The adoption agency.
Social
KSS. That is one of the adoption agencies from Korea. So we have in writing. So again, we're not making things up. This is about the adoptee. This part is the general thing. Standard forms. This is fabrication, systematic fabrication of adoption documents. That makes, among other, these documents make the adoptee an orphan. Here we have an example of double archive. This is in Hanja. It's really hard to see, but look over here. This is the official name and the official case number. But there's a reference to this person here. This is the real adoptee name, age. This up here is the official. So this is a Korean document. It's a part of the so-called switched cases. A switched case is where you take a child and send it out on a dead child's documents. This person here, she was 44 years old when she found out that she has never been the person that she had read about in her documents. The pictures, everything in her document actually belongs to a girl who died. And this document here, so you have the official file, and then you have the real file. In the real file, like here, there's a reference to the false file. We know the location, physical location of this archive, both at Holt and at KSS. So this is actually what they do. What we don't know why. We have a theory. Now we have used a lot of time to make documents and make especially travel certificates and passports and so on. And then, damn it, the child dies. What do? The customer still needs the goods. So you just take another child and send it away as this child. We have many of these cases here, and there's a full network of switched adoptees. They don't dare to participate in this case. We ask them why, because they are afraid that if they participate, then the adoption company would be angry with them and not help them to find their real identity. One female adoptee told me that she feels like a hollow shell, knowing that she is not the person that she thought she was. And she really wants to know her real identity. But this is the proof we're talking about. We have more of these cases here. Yes.
But how, you said that in this document, there's a reference to the other archive.
Yes.
Where and how can you see that?
This consists of more documents, but actually up here, you actually find the two names. The two names, like this name, alias this name. You can actually see the number up here. That is the alias up here. This is there are more papers than these, but these are actually documents from her adoption case. Now we're going to the orphan hojak, because we're also interested in see how can you make so many children disappear. This is actually from my adoption case, because say again, all the documents I show here, I'm allowed from the adoptee to show them and make them public. This is from my adoption file. This is a hojak, a family register. In South Korea, these documents are very important. A hojak. What they do with the Korean adoptee is actually you take them, and to make them orphan, you put them. This is like a family tree. So to clean all the background, they take the child and make them family chief, and they write parents unknown. This is my hojak from 1974. It actually says that it had been started for the purpose of adoption. Mate, this is my name in Hanja, and this says that I'm a Korean citizen. This is from a month ago when I visit a Truman Center. It is like a citizen center. It's like a public office. And I went in, it's actually the same document. So this is in 1984. It's they revoked my citizenship. So that means I've been, without my adoptive parents knowing, I've been a citizen for 10 years. I've been taking other adoptees from Korea to the treatment center just to see, is this just one case? One of my friends, Nia, she's been a Korean citizen for more than 20 years. And most of the F4 visa applicants, F4 visa is a visa that give you entrance to Korea if you are an adoptee. So you have to prove that you are a former Korean citizen to be able to get the visa. But it shows that most of the applicants are actually still Korean citizens today. And up here, they revoked my whole hojak. And this is made in 1999. I'm 25 years old at that time. I'm actually a legal adult. So Holt still goes in after, and they say, we are legal guardians of the child. And then they change our documents still. For 10 years, my adoptive parents have been the legal guardians. In 1999, I was 25 years old. I was a legal guardian, a legal adult myself. But they still do that. Korean adoptees, if you visit Korea, take your hojak and visit these centers. And a world of craziness opens. Because I showed this document. I said, okay, I would like to know my former Korean ID number. And they say, sorry, you have never been birth registered. Therefore, you don't have an ID number. And I ask, if not been registered in Korea and don't have an ID number, how can I be a Korean citizen then? They can't answer that question. And I ask, can I see the correspondence between Holt and the Justice Department of Korea, Holt and the Western Court, Holt and the Treatment Center? No, because you don't exist. I thought it was the documents that didn't exist. No, you didn't exist. I was told you don't exist. I said, that's funny because I'm standing right here with a bunch of documents. What the fuck do you mean? But that was actually what they said.
Why would the Korean adoption agency change the document when you were 25? Did something happen when you were 25?
Nope.
Did you enter the country? Did you apply for
Nope.
something?
Nope.
Because I am from Brazil and I've seen my Brazilian adoption information and no changes have been made since I left Brazil.
But in Korea, that's it's very common. So again, look into this because that's really strange. And again, there's been some kind of conversation between these. If you go to the court, where are the documents? Where's the letter saying change this? 1984, there was no emails. Let's say that. It has to be, yeah. So where are the documents? And I don't buy the argument that I don't exist. So this hojak here is actually makes us disappear. What we have also evidence of, we have real family registers where the parents have registered the child and they have an ID number, even in the 1970s. So what they do is make another document registered here. Some of the cases where we can see the difference. It is the same name, but in the 1970s, Korea used this, the lunar calendar. So they put in the birthday in the lunar calendar and change it to the same numbers, but just in the solar calendar. Then you have actually a double system. And this problem here is, the whole idea is that it isolates the adoptee, he or herself, on an isolated on an island, isolated from the Korean society. All adoptees, they are placed on an island without connection to the system. It makes the adoptee non-existing, creates a circular ring of questions. And that is the frustrating thing about when you go and ask, why am I'm a Korean citizen? Can I see my ID number? No, because you're not birth registered. Okay, how can I be birth? So you just have this ring all the time. You get crazy. All answers you get opens 10 more questions. This is what we're going to do. We're going to break this ring. We have done that already. And then we can discuss the real stuff in this. Try it yourself. Make a timeline. And you'll find out how crazy things are. You know this thing here where you have domino pieces and you push the first one and then they fall. And when it comes to adoption from South Korea, when you push the first piece, they don't fall like this. They fall in different. So gravity and logic is not. Yeah. We also have a Danish trail. Danish Adoption Agency claims to have heard nothing about falsification of documents. We're investigating this because we have actually found adoptees and adoptive parents complaining to the adoption authority. The Danish Adoption Agency, they first refused to have heard about falsification of documents, but now they admit that they know about it. And they also know about the double archives. So they know about falsification of documents, and they know about the double archive system. So I bet if you ask your adoption agency, Norway, yeah, and you ask them, I bet they will refuse. But if you squeeze them a little bit, I think they would admit. We did that. We have parallel trails in Korea also. We have the case, but we're also considering a case, individual lawsuit about the question of ownership of information, what I told about before. We're also discussing a trial case about stolen abducted children, adoptees. That is the story I told about sexual, this guy and child stolen from the market. And it could also be another case of illegal adoption. It could be Ingatone. Ingatone is the room here. Could be the Ingatone case also. So to take cases that are 100% waterproof, win it, and then say we have 50 more of those. So that was all for me.